My name from Sridham Mayapur, my name is Madhavananda Das, and these are our daily adventures in Srimad Bhagavatam. And so today we're very excited. We're coming to a new verse, reading from the third canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, chapter 29, which speaks about pure devotion service, text number 14. We want to start with offering some prayers. Before we do that, I'll just make a quick comment that today we're going to speak about a very interesting topic about oneness in Krishna consciousness, and how Gaudiya Vaishnavism also has a conception of the devotee and the Lord, or the devotee, the disciple and guru being one, and how that is. Gora draganya gana gotra goloruharam goram gura chamagopyada kopa vriksham Palagada ratidam yati singha gora govinda deshikavaram satatam namam Panchakalpatarubhishcha kripa sindhu devacha patitanam bhavanebhyo vaishnavyo Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So dear devotees, good morning from Sridham Mayapur. This is our daily adventures in Srimad Bhagavatam. And today, as part of our great adventure, we're reading from third canto, chapter 29, spoken by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Kapila to his mother, Devahuti. It's always really good when the son preaches to the mother. That's something special. So this is text number 14. Sa eva bhakti yogakya achantika udarita yenati vrajatri gunam madbhavayo papadyate. Translation: by attaining the highest platform of devotional services, as I've explained, one can overcome the influence of the three modes of material nature and be situated in the transcendental stage, as is the Lord. Reading from Srila Prabhupada's purport, which we may just read a little bit from today, more tomorrow, we'll see. Sripad Shankaracharya, who is supposed to be the leader of the impersonalist school of philosophers, has admitted in the beginning of his comments on Bhagavad Gita that Narayan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is beyond the material creation. Except for him, everything is within the material creation. It is also confirmed in the Vedic literature that before the creation, there was only Narayan. Neither Lord Brahma nor Lord Shiva existed. Only Narayan, or the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vishnu or Krishna, is always in the transcendental position beyond the influence of material creation. So in this verse, the word ajantika is significant. He's saying that saeva bhakti yogakya ajantika udarita. Udarita, I'm going to explain this thing to you about how by this bhakti yoga you can come to atyantika, the highest platform. And what is that atyantika? He indicates in the next line, mat bhavaya upapadyate. Upapadyate means to attain. He says mat bhavaya, to my transcendental stage. Now, sometimes people, they have the idea that we're all God, everything is God, And the devotees, they're not at all happy with that conception. Srila Prabhupada once said that the impersonalists, they have the conception that we can become one with God. He said, but the devotees have a higher conception, that we can become, by being a devotee, God becomes your servant. Actually, the devotee overwhelms God. And Prabhupada mentions Shankaracharya here in his purport. He alludes to Shankaracharya's commentary in the Gita, where he says, Narayano Paro Vyaktat, that Narayan, he's Paro Vyaktat, he's beyond the avyakta, or the unmanifested material energy. And many times, in many places, Sripad Shankaracharya, he indicates like this that actually his real conception is something personal. So today I'd like to explore a little bit of the conceptions of Shankaracharya, his personal conceptions, with some nice examples. And then we'd like to speak something about this principle that Krishna, Lord Kapila is saying here, Madhvavayo Papadyate, how someone comes to the transcendental stage of the personality of Godhead, and they become non-different from that personality, but not in the way that most of the followers of Shankaracharya consider. Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita, in chapter 9, text 30, he speaks a very famous verse, Apichet Sudaracharo Bhajate Mahamananyabhak Sadareva Samantavya Samyag Vyavasito Hisa. That even if someone is doing some durachara, some very bad behavior, but if he's performing devotional service, he's doing ananyata bhajan, then sadareva samantavya, he's a sadhu. So in his Gita Bhashya commentary, Shankaracharya has explained, Api chet yadyapi sudurachar sustu duracharo taiva kutsicharo pi bhajate mam ananya bhakti san sadareva samyak britta eva samantavyo gyatavya samyak yatavad vivasito hi saha yasmat sadhu nishchaya sa. He says that apichet yadi, by saying this word apichet, yadi means even though someone's a sudachara, is a very sinful, wretched person, if that person is bhajate mam, he's worshipping me ananyabhak in a one-pointed way, then that person sadareva samyak viti, he should be understood to be a sadhu, he's situated properly, and his resolution is fixed. So this is what Shankaracharya is saying, very personal thing. That if someone's a devotee of Krishna, even though they may be fallen externally, but if they're worshipping Krishna, that person is a sadhu. Srila Prabhupada, in one lecture, one of his earliest lectures, when he came to America, this was on the 26th of December, 1966, he spoke some very interesting things about Shankaracharya. He quoted a prayer, which is from the last prayer that Shankaracharya wrote, very famous verse, Bhaja Govindam. Bhaja Govindam, Bhaja Govindam, Bhaja Govindam, Mudamate, Prapte Sanhite Kale Marane, Nahi Nahi, Rakshate Dukkankarane. Prabhupada says this is a very famous prayer. Shankaracharya has made many prayers about Krishna, especially about his Vrindavan Leela. He's saying this about Shankaracharya. He's made many prayers about Krishna's Vrindavan Leela. He's worshipped Krishna in many ways. And in the end, this is his last composition of poetry where he said, Bhaja Govindam, Bhaja Govindam, Bhaja Govindam, Mudha Mate. You fools, you Mudha Mate. Mudha Mate means you fools. He was addressing the whole world, you fools. Bhaja Govindam, just become a devotee of Krishna. Just become Krishna conscious. Prapti sanahite kale marane nahi nahi rakshati dukkan karane. You're philosophizing. You're talking about grammar and this thing and that thing. And Prabhupada says, because these people want to establish impersonalism from the Bhagavad Gita on the strength of grammar. Such a nonsense they are. They want to understand God through grammar. God is so cheap that he can be understood through grammar. Therefore, especially he specified, Prapti sanahite kale marane. When death catches you, what good is your grammar? It won't save you, you fools. Please become Krishna conscious. That was the instruction of Shankaracharya. And he's especially mentioned Bhagavad Gita and the Ganga water. He especially mentions a little quantity of Ganga water and a little study of Bhagavad Gita will save you from many dangerous positions. In issue 210 of our Krishna Katamrita Bindu, highly recommended that you subscribe to that. If you haven't, at least probably 80% of your life is wasted. You can't say 50%, at least 80% if you haven't subscribed to that. We printed Krishnastakam Part 1. There's also Part 2, which we printed issue 2 later. And this is composed by Adi Shankaracharya. And Prabhupada said in his lecture, he says that Shankaracharya has made many prayers about Krishna, especially his Vrindavan Leela. And this indicates the real conception of Shankaracharya. So listen to a few verses of this Krishnastakam. Such a beautiful, beautiful poem. The Sanskrit's just astonishing. Bhaje Vajaika Mandanam Samasta Papa Kandanam Sabhakta Chitta Ranjanam Sadaiva Nanda Nandanam Supicha Gucha Mastakam Sunadadena Hastakam Ananga Ranga Sagaram Namami Krishna Nagaram. I offer my respectful obeisances to the transcendental lover Krishna, the exclusive ornament of Braj Bhumi, who cuts to pieces all sinful reactions. He's the eternal son of Nanda, who brings pleasure to the hearts of his devotees. Holding a transcendently sweet flute in his hands, his head adorned with an extremely beautiful bunch of peacock feathers. This transcendental Cupid is an ocean of variegated, blissful pastimes. So nice. We don't need to read more, but I really want to. It's so sweet. Manojagarva mochanam visalalola lochanam vidutta gopa sochanam namami padma lochanam karavavinda buddharam smitavaloka sundaram mahendra manadaranam namami Krishna varanam. I offer my respectful obeisances to Krishna, whose broad eyes and wholesome lips resemble a fully blossomed lotus. Thereby vanquishing the pride of Cupid, he drives away the sorrows of the cowherd residents of Vrindavan. By lifting Govardhan hill on his little finger, he defeated the pride of Indra. By his enticing gaze and carefree actions, he appears just like a maddened elephant. One more. Kadambasuna kundalam sucharuganda mandalam vajanganaika valabam namami Krishna durlabam yasodaya samodaya sagopaya sanandaya yutam sukaika dayakam namami gopanayakam. I offer my respectful obeisances to Krishna, the hero of all the cowherd residents of Vrindavan. His beautiful cheeks are the ornaments of the Kadamba earrings that decorate his ears. Although extremely difficult to obtain, he is exclusively dear to the inhabitants of Braj Bhumi. And he is a source of constant bliss for devotees like Yashoda, Nanda Maharaj, and all the cowherd men and women. So this is Narayana Paro Vyakta. And Krishna is the source of Narayana. He's the supreme Narayana. And Shankaracharya, he admits in his Gita commentary that the Krishna is supreme to everything. I have to read just a couple more verses from this, the last two verses. Vidagda gopika mano manogya talpasayanam namami kunjakanane prabhidavani payanam kishora kanti ranjitam jaganjanam susobitam gajendra mokshakarinam namami Sri Viharanam. To Krishna, who enjoys variegated pastimes of Srimati Radharani, and who simultaneously rests on the clarified minds of the expert gopis, I offer my respectful obeisances. He swallowed the forest fire in Braj Bhumi in order to protect his near and dear ones. He is a cause of salvation of the elephant Gajendra, and his effulgent, youthful figure illuminates all directions. Yadata da yatata tata taiva Krishna satkata. Mayasa daiva giyatam tatakripa vidiyatam. Pramanti kastakam dvayam japatya ditya yapuman bhavetsananda nandane bhave bhave subhaktiman. O Krishna, in all times, places, and circumstances, let me always be immersed in hearing and reciting your pastimes. Please let me obtain your causeless mercy in this way. Whosoever sings and understands this authorized Krishnastakam prayers will get exclusive Krishna bhakti in all of his future births. So, the conception of Sripad Shankaracharya is not actually something impersonal. In the Padma Purana, there's a conversation which we printed in our 7th issue of Krishna Katamrita magazine between Parvati and Lord Shiva. An interesting conversation. She asked her husband, can you please tell me about who's bona fide to hear from and who's not bona fide? Tell me about bogus people so I can avoid them. And then Lord Shiva starts telling her, well, bogus people, they wear 3 lines of tilak across their forehead, they have ashes all over their body, they hang out in crematoriums and things. And Parvati's kind of listening, looking at her husband. She says, excuse me, but it's you. How do we understand this? And then he tells her a wonderful story of how Lord Narayan once called for him and asked him to do a big job, to go to preach to the atheists, to convince them to preach to the persons who are followers of Lord Buddha, to convince them to become atheists, because better they do that than kill animals in the name of the Vedas. And he spoke to her, he said, Mayavadam asachchastram pachanam buddham uchate, that I'll take birth as Buddha, or I come, to defeat this Buddhist philosophy, and he comes as Shankaracharya. So, although Shankaracharya people think is Mahavakya, Sarvam Kal Vedam Brahma, and Aham Brahmasmi, that everything is Brahman, that I am Brahman, in actuality, for those persons who are devotees, like his mother, we told a story a month or 2 ago about how Shankaracharya, when he took sannyas, it's a long story, he promised his mother that I'll come back and I'll be with you when you leave your body. And so later he was in somewhere in North India, his mother's in South India, and all of a sudden he told his followers, I have to go. Something's going on with my mother, because he's also a mamacharya. And by his mystic power, he immediately manifested himself there by the side of his mother. And he said, so mother, what do you want at this time? And he started to speak to her about Brahman. And his mother said, I don't want to hear about that. That's really boring. That's not very interesting at all. And so then Lord Shiva, Lord Shankaracharya, who's Lord Shiva, told him, manifested some of his dutas, his Shiva dutas, who, don't worry, Mom, these guys are here to help you. And she saw these really crazy, terrible looking persons, and she also became really, said, no, this is also not good. And so then he said, okay. And he started speaking about Krishna and Vrindavan. That's the best thing. And then the Vishnu Buddhas came and took his mother away. So devotees don't appreciate this concept of kaivalya not ācāryas, that we consider this oneness to be like hell. And Gaudiya Vaishnavism is supremely personal. The more that we're impersonal, the more suffering we have, socially, individually, and the more we become advanced, the more impersonal we are, the more we can understand. We may be impersonal in thinking, I'm American, or I'm an ISKCON devotee, or this is my wife. And we're thinking in terms of external things like the upadhis or designations of the body. And that's a natural thing to think about, but those upadhis are all forms of subtle impersonalism. And it's only when we come to understand that I'm a devotee, I'm an individual, I'm a servant of Krishna, I'm a servant of my Guru, that we can really begin to make advancement. But at the same time, as Lord Kapila Dev is saying in this verse today, where he speaks that madbhava yopapadyate, that when someone comes to this platform of Adyantika, or this very high platform, then they come to the platform of the Lord. They become like the Lord. And this is described by Srila Rupa Goswami in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Although we're personalists and we reject impersonalism, he says a very interesting thing. When he begins speaking about the different angas of bhakti, he describes the first 3. Guru Padashrayas, you take shelter of the lotus feet of Guru. Tasmat, then Krishna Dikshadi, you take Diksha from that person, then you take Siksha from that person, then he says Vishram Bena Guru Seva. That's the next principle. You take shelter of Guru, and you take initiation from, you take instruction from Guru, and then Vishram Bena Guru Seva, you do service to Guru. The word Vishramba is significant. Vishramba means with respect. But Vishramba also has a deeper meaning. It indicates oneness, that the devotee should be like one with Guru. In this regard, there's two types of seva that the disciple may do. Sambrahma seva. That Sambrahma seva means with reverence and awe, and they're afraid of Gurudev. Or someone may do Vishramba seva with no awe and reverence, as an intimate friend. So such a devotee becomes so intimate with the Lord that they consider to be non-different from the Lord. How is that? This is our topic of our discussion today, how that disciple becomes one with the Guru. And in this regard, I'd like to begin with a very nice example from the 5th chapter of Adi Leela of Chaitanya Charitamrita, and the story of Miniketana Ramdas. We were speaking amongst ourselves about this not so long ago in our classes here in I want to say Jagannath Puri, here in Mayapur. Lord Nityananda Prabhu, he had a servant named Shri Miniketana Ramdas, who was a very great devotee. And Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami speaks about him. He says that, interesting thing, he says that in our home, we were always doing Sankirtan day and night. Like Shampriya and Sachitananda's house, doing Sankirtan day and night. And Miniketana Ramdas was invited by him to come and stay there, because that's the nature of the Vaishnavas. They want to do kirtan always, and they also want to serve the Vaishnavas. So he describes the character of Miniketana Ramdas and the influence that he had in others. Mahaprema Moya, Tinho Vashila Angane, Shakala Vaishnavatana Bhandila Charane. That he was Mahaprema Moya. He was completely absorbed in ecstatic love. And he was just sitting in the courtyard. And Shakala Vaishnavatana, all the different Vaishnavas came there and bowed down Bandile Charane, to his lotus feet. And Miniketana Ramdas was a little bit of a madman. Sometimes he would climb on the shoulder of somebody, and sometimes he would offer a basin. Somebody's offering a basin system, and he'd climb on their shoulders. And sometimes he would hit someone with his flute or slap them in a gentle way. And he describes, Je noyane dekiti ashru hoya mani jar, she netre avichina bahe ashrudar. Just when anybody would see Miniketana Ramdas, they would begin to cry in ecstasy. And from the eyes of Miniketana Ramdas, there was ashrudhara, there was a shower of tears coming down constantly. Miniketana Ramdas had all the symptoms of ecstasy on his body. And he was a great devotee of Lord Nityananda, and it was considered that Nityananda Prabhu had entered into his body and he was non-different from Nityananda. How do we understand that? We don't appreciate the philosophy of Shankaracharya. We're personalists. We don't like this idea of merging. But hearing about this great devotee, Miniketana Ramdas, who had said that Nityananda Prabhu had entered into his body. There was a Brahmin, his name was Sri Gunarnava Mishra. Mishra is a common title for Brahmins in Orissa, and especially more often in UP and other places in India. And when Miniketana Ramdas was seated in the courtyard there, Taha Deki Krudahana Bholi Ramdas. This Miniketana, this Gunarnava Mishra, it said, Angane Asuyateno no Kaila Sambas. He didn't speak to him. That's all. It's not a big deal, right? He just didn't speak to him. But according to the Skanda Purana, there's 6 different types of offenses to a Vaishnava, and one of them is to neglect a Vaishnava. And when Miniketana Ramdas saw that, now naturally a Vaishnava is a manina manadena. They tolerate everything, they give all respect to others, they're as tolerant as a tree. But when Miniketana Ramdas saw that, Tahat Deki, when he saw that, Krudahana, Balaram, he became very, very angry with him. Now, how is that? That doesn't sound like a devotee. Why should a devotee become angry because someone's just neglecting him? At that time, he said, oh, now we have a second Ramaharshana Sutta, who at Naimisharanya was speaking to the sages. And when Lord Balaram entered that assembly, Ramaharshana Sutta was sitting on the Vyasasana. He thought, I'm a big person, I'm giving class. And so he didn't get down to offer respects to Lord Balaram. Prabhupada writes in his purport to the following verse of Chaitanya Charitamrita, he says, the behavior of Gurunarnava Mishra indicated that he had no great respect for Lord Nityananda. And this idea was not at all palatable to Minikirtan Ramdas. For this reason, the mentality of Minikirtan Ramdas is never deprecated by devotees. It's never criticized. Devotees don't find fault with Minikirtan Ramdas's behavior. No, they understand, because Minikirtan Ramdas could understand that Lord Nityananda is in my body, that he and I are non-different. And this fellow, this Gurunarnava Mishra, he's not being respectful to me. He's disrespecting Lord Nityananda. That's why he's not being respectful to me. And so at the end of the festival, Minikirtan Ramdas went away and he gave his blessings to everybody. But at that time, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami says there was some disagreement with his brother. And he says about his brother that my brother had firm faith in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, but he only had a dim glimmer of faith in Lord Nityananda. That's the nature of the Kanishta Adhikari. They have faith in the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But Natad Bhakteshu Channeshu Sabhakta Prakrita Smita. They're Prakrita Bhakta because they don't have faith in the devotees or in other persons. And what to speak of, one should have faith in Lord Nityananda and Balaram. So seeing this, how Ramdas became unhappy in his mind. And at that time, Krishnadas Kaviraj chastised his brother and said, look, these two persons, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Nityananda, they're non-different. And if you don't believe in Nityananda Prabhu, then you're going to fall down. Better, he said, to be an atheist and give up both brothers than to be a hypocrite by believing in one, criticizing the other. And at that time, Kruda Hoya Vangsi Bhangi Chali Ramdas. Ramdas became angry and he broke his flute and he went away. Tatkali, at that time, Amara Brata, my brother, Hoila Sarvanas, my brother fell down. And Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami chastised him. And that night, Lord Nityananda Prabhu appeared to him in a dream and put his feet on the head of Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami. And Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami gives a long, beautiful description of the form of Nityananda Prabhu. And then Nityananda Prabhu smiled and told him, Are Are Krishnadas na karoho bhai, Vrindavani jaha thana sarva labhahoy. Go to Vrindavan. Thana sarva labhahoy. There in Vrindavan, you'll get everything. So Lord Nityananda was pleased with him. So this is a very important story to understand, that the devotee, in this case, Minikirtan Ramdas, he was one with Nityananda Prabhu. Not in the sense that the impersonalists describe. Sakshadarit Vinastamasta Shastra. He's one, but he's one in the sense, Jiva Goswami comments in this verse, Jiva Goswami comments elsewhere, that Guru is one with Krishna in the sense that he's so dear to Krishna. So a question comes then, how does this come about? How is it that the disciple becomes one with Guru? Vishram Bena Guru Seva. The disciple wants to become one with Guru, not in the impersonal sense, but we want to understand the heart of our Gurudev. So this is described in the second canto of Bhagavatam, famous verse in chapter 8, text 4. Shandata Shriya Nityam Gunatas Chas Vachestitam Kalena Natitirgena Bhagavan Vishate Hridi. That the Lord very quickly enters the heart of the devotee, who with faith continually hears and chants about the Lord. Krishna enters into the heart of that devotee. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, in his Sa'artha Darshani commentary, we like to quote authority. But by doing so, we'll please our Guru Maharaj and will help serve our Sampradaya better. Vishwanath describes, Sopi smana prayatna shravana kirtana vato bhaktasya navashyaka ityaha shinvata iti. Swaprayatnam vinapi bhagavan sameva hridayam pravisatiti shravana kirtana dinameva smanatiti gyapitam. That we should give some effort in hearing and chanting. And he says, however, even if someone's not giving great effort, but they're remembering the Lord, and they're chanting, they're doing Shravan and Kirtan, then Krishna enters into, so Swameva Hridayam Pravisatiti, Pravisat means to enter, Hrida, the heart. Krishna enters into the heart of that devotee. This is also described in a verse we often cite from Krishna Lila Stava of Sanatana Goswami, where he says, Rupa Namashrita Vishta, that when someone, Ashrita, takes shelter of the Rup, the form, or the Nam, the name of Krishna, then Avishta, Krishna enters into that person. So this is how the disciple becomes one with Gurudev. Not that he just wears Gurudev's t-shirt and he becomes a fanatic and runs around saying, Amar Guru, Jagat Guru, my Gurudev is very great, my Gurudev is the best Guru. Because Atmavan Mamate Jagat, he thinks that's the way I'd like it. If I had disciples, I hope they all go around and advertise me like that. Guru is not happy with that. But Gurudev becomes happy when he sees the disciple chanting Krishna's name. And when we come close to Gurudev in this way, through our kirtan, through our chanting, then there's a kind of Shakti that comes from that Vaishnava's body. Bhaktivinoda Thakur speaks about this in chapter 4 of Harinam Chintamani. Vaishnava nikete jari, Vaishe kota lakshana, Deha hoite, hoye Krishna, Shakti nisarana. He says that Vaishnava nikate jari, just if you happen to be close to a Vaishnava, Vaishya kata lakshana, just for a few moments, then deha hoiti hoy, you'll come in contact with Krishna Shakti, this potency which is coming from the deha, from the body of that Vaishnava. Not just from his instructions, but also from the body of that Vaishnava. Because Rupa Namashrita Vishta, Krishna's entered into the body of that devotee, just as Nityananda Prabhu has entered into the body of Manikirtan Ramdas. And so if we want to associate with the instructions, but we also want to associate with the body of that person. And by coming close to that person, the deha, he says very clearly, deha hoite, by coming in contact with that body, Krishna Shakti Nisarana. Then we get this Krishna Shakti. And it comes to us. And then he speaks about that Shakti. Say Shakti Shadavan, Hridoye Pashiya. If you're a Shadavan Jan, a faithful person, then that Shakti will enter into your heart. And then what happens? Bhaktira Udoya Kore Deha Kampaya. Your body starts trembling. When that Shakti, that Bhakti Shakti from the body of that Vaishnava enters into your heart, then Bhakti arises in your heart and you begin to shake. Jai Bashila Vaishnavara Nikate Shraddha. That you should, with faith, stay close to a Vaishnava. Not just that, like Prabhupada said sometimes, that the mosquito is very close to the king, but he's not appreciated. Not just that we stay close to Gurudev and have our photograph taken with him, we're always around him. But that faith means that we hear from him, that we follow the instructions of Gurudev, and that person is actually close to Gurudev. But at the same time, we also want to have his physical association. We want to have his merciful glance upon us. Tahara hridoye bhakti hoive udoy. If we faithfully stay near that Vaishnava, then we'll find that bhakti will arise in our own heart. And how does that happen? Pratame, first of all. Pratame asibita mukhi Krishna nam. Namera prabhave pavi sarva guna gram. When Krishna's name enters in mouth, then by the power of that holy name, the prabhav of that name, Pabi, they attain sarva guna gram, all good qualities. So this is what's being spoken about by Lord Kapila Dev in this verse today, that Saeva Bhakti Yoga Kya, by practicing this Bhakti Yoga, Achantika, you come to the topmost platform. And what is that? Madhava Yopapadyate. You'll come to the transcendental stage of being like the Lord himself. And this is oneness in bhakti, but it's not oneness in the sense that the followers of Shankaracharya consider. It's oneness in devotion. Just like when you come very, very close to someone, we often see, you can tell sometimes who someone's married to. Maybe you haven't met their wife yet, but she walks into the room. They look alike. People, when you start associating with someone for a long period of time, the physical features even look similar. We see this even with animals. You can Google this on the internet. There's people who have dogs, and they look just like their dog, or just like their cat. They come so close to that animal. So that's a kind of oneness in the heart. How this oneness comes about is through the holy name, because that holy name is in the heart of the Vaishnava. And when we chant the holy name and please that Vaishnava, then that Shakti comes to us through the holy name. This is described in the Narada Pancharatra, in the first Ratri, the first division, chapter 9. Mantra grahani matrena naro narayanatmaka punati lila matrena purishanam satam. That as soon as you receive a Krishna mantra, grahena matrena naro narayanatmaka, then you become situated in the same platform as Lord Narayan. And punati lila matrina purishena satam. You easily deliver 100 generations of your family. Someone may have a question. They may say, how is it that Lord Shiva famously says, Mukti Pradata Sarvesham Vishna Eva Nasamsaya, that I can't give liberation? Lord Shiva says this. Only Krishna, only Vishnu can give liberation. But, Lord Shiva is the head of a Vaishnava Sampradaya, the Rudra Sampradaya. He's a Vaishnava, he's Vaishnavanamita Shambhu. So how are you saying then he can't give liberation? He's the head of a Sampradaya. He gives liberation, but he doesn't give liberation. The Vaishnavas give liberation, but they don't give liberation. Krishna gives liberation through the form of his holy name. And when we take initiation, mantra, grahana, matra, we take initiation in Krishna mantra, then you become situated in the same platform as Lord Narayan. And it's not that the Vaishnava himself is, but that Vaishnava, that Shakti from the Vaishnava is a Shakti of the holy name. And Narad Muni, actually this is a conversation between Shiva and Parvati. And Shiva goes on, in Narada Pancharatra, Lord Shiva goes on to describe the Parvati. Krishna mantra pasakanam sadhu darshana matrata sata jamarjita papa muchate not to samsay, don't have any doubt that just by seeing a devotee who's always chanting the name of Krishna, sata jamarjita papa muchate, all the sinful reactions, all the pop you may have gotten in sata janma, in 100 lifetimes, they all go away just by seeing that devotee. And Lord Shiva concludes telling Parvati, Vaishnavad darshananaiva sparsanena cha Parvati sadya putam jalam vanir jagat puta samirina. He says, Vaishnavad darshananaiva, just by seeing a Vaishnava, sparsanena, by touching a Vaishnava. It's not just that I read the books and I come in touch with Guru, but I also want to touch their body. I want to massage the lotus feet of Srila Prabhupada. There's something special about that. It's not just only reading his books. He says, by doing those things, then, he says, Jalam Vanya Jagat Puta Samari, all these things become purified. The whole world becomes purified. The water, fire, air, all these things become purified. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur spoke about this in one article, which he wrote is a commentary article on the first verse of Chaitanya Charitamrita. And he speaks about the principle of the disciple and the guru, and how the disciple is close to guru. And it's a very, very profound, very, very deep article. I'm going to go through it and read it to you in English, and then I'm going to translate it and explain it. Listen carefully. The guru is the embodiment of the manifestation of the divinity to the pure receptive spiritual essence of the disciple. Okay, can you explain that? Maybe a little slower. Right? So the guru, he's the embodiment of the manifestation of the divinity. So when the divinity manifests in a body, that's Gurudev. And who does he manifest to? The pure, receptive, spiritual essence of the disciple. My Guru Maharaj called that Atma Krandana. When the devotee begins to cry, that's the pure, receptive, spiritual essence of the disciple. He begins to cry to the Lord. Then that divinity manifests a body which is Guru. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta goes on. The Guru is a real and original recipient of the truth. That's the position of Guru. He's a real recipient of the truth. Recipient means person who's gotten it. And he's the original recipient of the truth. He communicates his knowledge to the disciple. That's the function of Guru. The disciple, this is what he says, the disciple is too small a particle to be able by himself to receive the whole truth. He's speaking like in size. Mamayva so jiva loke, jiva bhuta sanatana. Krishna says the jiva is my angsa, very, very tiny particle. And because we're that jiva angsa, we're so tiny, we can't receive the whole truth on our own. It's too big. He's unable to receive him through the power of the Guru. The Guru, as it were, takes a disciple by the hand and guides his every step on the plane of the absolute. So we can't walk on that plane. We can't go there. But Gurudev says, come with me. And he takes the disciple by the hand. And then he guides his every step so that he can walk on that plane of the absolute. And he can do that because he's the real and original recipient of the truth, because he's the embodiment of the manifestation of the divinity. Gurudev can do that. He's on the platform of the divinity. He's Sakshadvivitvi. He's non-different from Krishna. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta goes on. It is perpetual tutelage on the part of the disciple. Perpetual means eternally. Tutelage means to learn from. The disciple is eternally learning from Gurudev. This fact may be expressed in another way. The cognitive faculty of the individual soul can have no ground to stand upon unless the divinity himself condescends to be the legs as well as the ground on which he is to stand to function at all. Probably a few brains checked out from that sentence. The cognitive faculty of the individual soul can have no ground to stand upon. Our ability to perceive as an individual soul can have no ground to stand upon. You can't perceive. It's not possible. We often comment, Ata Sri Krishna Namadi Nabhavigraham Indriya. With your material senses, you cannot perceive, but only Sevan Mukhi Jiva do. When we render service to Guru with the lips by chanting, does it manifest Swayam Eva Sparatyada. So he says, the cognitive faculty of the individual soul can have no ground to stand upon unless the divinity himself condescends to be the legs as well as the ground on which he's to stand to function at all. So unless God himself agrees to be my legs as well as the ground, I can't stand, I can't function. Now he doesn't explain here, but we see two different ways that the divinity manifests himself. One is the legs that we walk with, and the other is the ground that we walk upon. And unless the divinity agrees to be the ground and the legs, it is not possible for us to walk. How does he become the ground? He becomes our Sambandha Datta in the form of Diksha Guru, where he gives us the ground. He is our Sambandha, he's our connection. The ground is our connection. But we can't walk on the ground. We need to have legs. And the legs are the Siksha Guru. And Krishna appears also as a Siksha Guru. And the Siksha Guru teaches us what to do with the ground in front of us. So listen further what he says. It becomes, if you think this is startling what we just read, we're just starting. Listen now. This function of the divinity is performed by the Guru. As a matter of fact, the divinity actually reveals him only to himself. What does that mean? Think about it. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati is not just giving us some words to memorize, but he's wanting us to reflect the ideas as Bhaktivinoda Thakur, his father, instructed. He wants us to think. The divinity actually reveals him only to himself. That's Guru. Gurudev is on the platform of the divinity, and therefore Lord Kapila is saying here in this verse, this is the topmost platform. When you come to the platform of the Lord, that's Guru. That's the highest Vaishnava. And so the Lord only reveals him to himself. Only someone who's on that platform. I'll read the sentence again. As a matter of fact, the divinity actually reveals him only to himself. And then he says, another really startling, beautiful thing, which is the topic of our discussion today. The individual soul is a separable constituent of the Guru. This is oneness. The Gurudev expands himself. He's a separable constituent. Gurudev a separable constituent of Gurudev is a devotee. And this is Maniketan Ramdas. Nityananda Prabhu is in his body. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta goes on. It is only when the disciple happens to be associated by his own free choice with the Guru in a completely dependent manner that he can be on the plane of the Guru's service of the divinity. So this is our topic today. How the disciple becomes non-different from Guru. How the Vaishnava becomes non-different from the Lord. Not in the sense that Shankaracharya says, but oneness in the terms of heart. And so here's Srila Bhaktisiddhanta to pick apart this last sentence we just read. It's only, it's not going to happen any other way, only if you associate by your own free choice with Guru. Because we have our freedom of choice. We have a choice. What do we want to do? What do we want to hear about? What do we want to follow? But when we associate by our own free choice with Guru, and how do we associate with him? In a completely dependent manner. Gurudev is my everything. Guru Mata, Guru Pitta. What is it in this verse? Let's see. We will shout this quite often. It's not coming to my mind. Phones are also good for something. Guru Gati, Guru Mati, Guru Satya, Guru Pati, Guru Bandhu, Bandhu Vasvajan. Guru Pitta, Guru Mata, Guru Bhakti Patta Datta, Guru Sarva Siddhirankaram. This verse is written by a great devotee of Lord Nityananda. His name is Nayananda Thakur, in his book Krishna Rasa Bhakti Kadamba. And this is the 12th verse as a part of his Mangalacharana prayers. He's saying that Guru Gati, Gurudev is my goal. Guru Mati, Gurudev is what I should be thinking about. Guru Satya, Gurudev is the truth. Guru Pati, Gurudev is my real protector. Guru Bandhu, he's my real friend. Guru Bandhavas, Swajan, Gurudev, he's my real relative. Guru Pitta, he's my father. Guru Mata, my mother. Guru Bhakti Patadatta. Gurudev is the person who gives me the path of bhakti. Guru Sarva Siddhira Karan. Gurudev is a cause of all perfection. So when we associate by our own free choice with the Guru in a completely dependent manner, then we can be on the plane of the Guru's service of divinity. Then we can get on that 747 plane of our Gurudev. And we can take off and we can go. It's Gurudev, our Guru Maharaj used to say, the Gurudev is not just mantra datta, not just someone who gives mantra. As fucking Rambu told us of saying in Uriya, Kon Funka Guru, Kona Funka Guru. Kona Funka means to spit. And ear, Kona means the ear. The Guru is not just someone who comes and spits in your ear, gives you mantra. He's not just mantra datta Guru, but he's ashraya datta. He gives shelter. And when we take shelter of Gurudev, we come close to Gurudev, by coming close to what's close to him in his heart, by hearing and chanting, then we come on the plane of Gurudev, and amazing things happen. And that devotee can do so many things. So we're a little late than I wanted right now. I want to give one more little example of this. This is from a great devotee. His name is Bihari Lal. And he was a disciple of one of our most famous ācāryas. His name was Jagannath Das Babaji. And on one occasion, Jagannath Das Babaji called for his servant Bihari Lal and told him, hey Bihari, I want to hear Chaitanya Charitamrita. You read Chaitanya Charitamrita to me. And Bihari hung his head down. He said, Guru Maharaj, I'm sorry, I don't know how to read. Bihari was a big fellow. He used to carry Jagannath Das in a basket on his shoulders. But he told him, I don't know how to read. And Jagannath Das Babaji said, hey, I told you to read. Pick up the book and read it. Okay, whatever you say. He picked it up. And he started reading Chaitanya Charitamrita. By the order of Gurudev. By the power of Gurudev. Another occasion, Jagannath Das told him, so we want to do kirtan. You play mridanga. And Bihari told him, Guru Maharaj, I don't know how to play mridanga. No, I'm telling you, play mridanga. Sit down, pick it up. Yes, Guru Maharaj. And he picked it up and started playing. Very wonderful. Our Guru Maharaj once visited a small village in Orissa. And many people came to hear him. There was one young boy there amongst the group. And Guru Maharaj was wanting to do kirtan. There was no one to play mridanga. And suddenly Guru Maharaj turned to this boy he'd never met before, village boy from that area. And Guru Maharaj told him, play mridanga. And the devotee, the young boy said, Maharaj, I'm sorry, I've never played mridanga, I don't know how to do it. And he said, play mridanga? Yes, Maharaj. He picked up and started playing in a wonderful way. He had faith in Guru Maharaj. And today that devotee does a lot of kirtan and teaches a lot of people mridanga. At the end of his life, Jagannath Das Babaji called for Bihari Lal. And he told him, he said, Bihari Lal, you served me so nice. Now tell me, what do you want? If you want, you just tell me, right now, I'm going to tell Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to give you 5 carts full of gold. Just tell me, what do you want, Bihari? And Bihari began to cry. He said, Guru Maharaj, I don't want anything. I only want you. I only just want to have you by my side. And so then Jagannath Das Babaji smiled and became pleased and told him, thank God. He said, I was ready to get you these carts of gold, but first I wanted to hear from you. You're going to have so much trouble if you had that gold. You don't know. Everybody's going to try to rob you, and cheap women are going to want to try to marry you, and your life's going to be miserable. I wanted to hear what you wanted. I said, I give you my blessings. You'll never experience any problems. You'll have whatever you need. All your desires will be fulfilled. You'll live to be 100 years old, and I'll always be by your side. You'll always hear my voice in your heart. So that's Vishwambhena Guru Seva. This is what Lord Kapila was speaking about in this verse today. Ajantika. They come to the highest platform by practicing Bhakti Yoga, which is Madhbhava Yopapadyate, where they come to the transcendental stage of Madhbhavaya, understanding the mood, the heart of Krishna through the doorway, through the heart of Gurudev. So this is oneness in Krishna Consciousness. We also have our conception of oneness. And I want to continue this discussion. Our next session today is Friday, which will be on Sunday. So we'll go ahead and stop there. It's later than I wanted. And I want to ask the devotees if anyone has any reflections. Just hear from everybody what you're walking away with. Mahendra Prabhu is here. Bhajabanita and Madhupati Prabhu and Lynn. Hare Krishna, nice to see you all this morning. Natalia and Garanga. Nice to see so many devotees. Thank you all for taking part this morning. Snigdha Paki, Hare Krishna, Veta Chandra. And Bhajabanita is appreciating Krishnastakam. That's such a beautiful, beautiful prayer. And Pushkaraksha Prabhu, the senior godbrother, Pushkaraksha Prabhu was one of Guru Maharaj's very first disciples. He's saying, Vaishnavanamita Shambhu. The Lord Shiva is the greatest of the Vaishnavas. Yes. And Madhupati Prabhu says, can we say that Sripad Shankaracharya was misunderstood or misinterpreted because after Buddhism, his personalism is just too much to grasp for people? Yes, this is why Srila Prabhupada used to address him as Ācārya Shankar. And our Gaudiya Vaishnavas, we appreciate Shankar. He's misunderstood sometimes not just by the common people, but perhaps even by devotees. And sometimes devotees think he's some kind of demon or something. But Srila Prabhupada and our previous Acharyas addressed him as Ācārya Shankar. And we appreciate his conception, his beautiful prayers at Krishnastakam. Also Jagannathastakam is said to have been written by Sripad Shankaracharya. Many, many beautiful prayers where he glorifies Krishna and Vrindavan and Radharani. But he spoke in a certain way. Gurudev spoke in a certain way. Sometimes devotees, people, they come and they see our movement and they see all these sannyasis, they don't know how to pronounce Sanskrit, they don't know so much Shastra. They're not very high-tech. But they don't see that you may consider that, oh, this doctor, he's a very low-class doctor because he's just treating so many common people coming off the street. I appreciate the doctor who's doing surgery, who's doing brain surgery. But that brain surgeon may have less education than that other devotee, that other doctor who's treating people on the street. You see just by he's doing this so-called higher thing. But the doctor on the street is treating many, many people, and he's treating them according to their need. The Vaishnavas don't come to try to advertise themselves and push themselves forward as a big person and show off what they know. But rather, they're expert sadhu vaidya, they're expert devotee doctors, and they know what medicine to give at the right time for the right person. So Shankaracharya, he understood what was the right medicine for so many people. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur comments about Shankaracharya in Jaiva Dharma, and he says that there's two types of ways that the Acharya speaks, Tatkalika and Sarvakalika. And he gives the example of Shankaracharya. Tatkalika means according to time, place, and circumstance. And Shankar saw that people were being misled by this atheism under the guise of following the Vedas. They were killing animals and doing so many nonsense things. And therefore Buddha came. And so many people were attracted by Buddhism. So he wanted to bring them back to Vedic culture. And so he criticized this Buddhism. And he brought them something which is which was Prachanam Buddham Uchate, as he said himself, covered Buddhism. But at the same time, for his intimate followers, he said Narayana Pravyakta, that Narayana is supreme. And he gave Krishnastakam and other things. Pushkaraksha Prabhu has commented, one of the principles of surrender is to have no interest separate from the interest in the Lord. In that sense, one is one with the Lord. Very beautiful. It's a fact. When we become completely surrendered, and that devotee is non-different from the Lord. And Len has commented, God is my legs in the ground. This is so profound. That which both allows me to move and simultaneously provides a stable and steady foundation upon which to stand firm. Thank you for this wonderful teaching. Thank you for giving us your association and your heartfelt comments. And we very much appreciate it. We feel your presence. Avatar Hare Krishna. Mama Thakur, who has commented, I very much appreciate you encouraging us to go as far as possible. Reflect on what we're hearing and reading. Often I find myself mindlessly reading and hearing class to tick the attendance box or hours read box. It is also encouraging to know, by the mercy of Gurudev, even a brain may one day manifest between my ears. Thank you for sharing and inspiring us. Thank you. That's a very beautiful comment. And Brajabanita comments, the words of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta pierced my heart. Thank you. And Gauranga comments something. He says, we talk so much about Siksha Guru and Diksha Guru as being non-different. Many consider someone a Siksha Guru just because they like their preaching without ever asking them to give shelter. It seems to me that if we're to see both Siksha and Diksha as non-different, there at least there should be a process of accepting someone as a Siksha disciple. Yeah, how do you feel about that? How would you feel if somebody goes around, has never met you and saying, yeah, you know, my best friend's Gauranga. He and I, we're like this, you know. Because I read something that he wrote and I listened to one of his lectures. He's my best friend. You think the guy's crazy. What is this? I don't know who this person is. Somebody's going around saying, this is my guru, this is my secret. What is that? It's impersonalism. We should go. If you really want someone to be your Siksha Guru, it means you should be ready to accept that person and slap you in the face and chastise you and speak in a harsh way. It's personal. We don't say, oh, I'm getting married. Tell your mother, I'm getting married to some beautiful girl. And she says, wow, that's really good. What's her name? Oh, I don't know. But I love her. What is that? Where does she live? Oh, I don't know. I've never met her before. What is that? Huh? You have to make a personal relationship. Snigdapati comments, thank you very much. A wonderful nectar, Uncle, your wonderful service. Thank you all very much. So I'd like to turn to the devotees who are here in the room with us, who are part of our little pod. Anybody here have any reflections you want to share? Sachita Mahaprabhu? Anything?
I just remember that Srila Prabhupada used to mention about the living entity as a finite, and how can the finite understand the infinite? So when the infinite comes to the finite, then we can understand. Because knowing that we are in quality, we are same with the Lord, we're same, but not in quantity. So that part. Now, just as a question, I was going to ask that that Krishnastakam, is that included in their books or is a separate book?
I don't have so many books of the followers of Shankaracharya.
Because, okay,
but I do have one in Puri, in Bengali, in Sanskrit, and it includes a Krishnastakam. It's published by some of the.
So then there is a question in that. We know that Vaishnavas and Shaivas, they've been debating since time immemorial, right? So then just like we have the Ishopanishad, which the tendency is to see more impersonalist. For a new person reading that, he goes, oh, here it is. It's impersonal. But the devotees find the jewels inside. So we can find our version to favor or to understand the personalism. So the question will be, like if these people have debates, well, you can say, well, look, it's right here in your books. But if it's not in the book, and if it's a separate book, could that be like, oh, some Vaishnava wrote it, and now you put it back to us, saying that's Shiva?
This is kind of a scholarly question. I can comment a little on that. I'm not a scholar, but I talk to scholars. I have friends who are scholars. It's one of my shaktis in my chart. I have some yoga for making friends with scholars. Anyway, sometimes they say that oh, Shankaracharya didn't write this, but it was some other Shankaracharya who wrote it. But you should know, even if you go to the Govardhan Mutt in Jagannath Puri, Govardhan Mutt was established about 1,000 years ago by Shankaracharya. They worship a deity of Krishna. I've seen the deity. I went inside before they kicked me out. And they didn't allow foreign devotees inside there. But you can see they worship Krishna. And they also worship Jagannath. In fact, in Puri, there's a school where they train the young boys to be Brahmins. And it's run by the Shankaracharya in Puri. So they have some conception. This is an important point because if you see some of them even chant the Hare Krishna mantra. Some of them read Srimad Bhagavatam. I met a Mayavadi once who was attached to reading Chaitanya Charitamrita. But he's a Mayavadi. And you know what he told me? He said, in Madhya Lila chapter 8, in Ramananda Samvad, when Ramananda Roy is speaking of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when he finally gets to the point of Prema Vilas Vivarta, which is what we're speaking about today on a higher level, when the lover and the beloved become one, at that time Chaitanya Mahaprabhu put his hand over Ramananda Roy's mouth. He says, because Ramananda Roy was going to talk about Sarvam Kalvidam Brahma. He was about to say that we're all one. So if you talk with him, you might get very confused. There's so many people in Puri and other places in India who, they look like the Vaishnavas. They're chanting Hare Krishna, they're reading Srimad Bhagavatam, but they're thinking of Krishna as Savisesh Brahman, or Brahman who's manifested a form. And the highest thing they think is Nirvisesh Brahman. And we should come to that point. And the reason why we chant Hare Krishna, the reason why they reach Srimad Bhagavatam is so that they become one with the Lord. So that's very dangerous. And therefore, Mayavadi Bhashya Shinaya Sarvanas, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, don't hear this Mayavadi Bhashya. You become confused. It would be a very, very terrible thing for you. So thank you. Nice comment, Prabhu. Gauranga Prabhu responded to our comments about Siksha and Diksha Guru. And he's saying it makes total sense. And then he asked something controversial. Thanks a lot, Gauranga Prabhu. In this light, how do we reconcile that Srila Prabhupada is considered the Siksha Guru for ISKCON? Well, officially we say like that, and okay, it makes things antiseptic and prophylactic. It makes it nice and neat that Prabhupada is everybody's Siksha Guru. And in one sense, we can say like that, just like we have what Srila Bhaktisiddhanta called our Siksha Parampara, that just like Narottam Das Thakur was 100 years separated from Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, but his name comes in our list right after Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. It wasn't that they met, but he accepted the teachings of Vishwanath in his heart. But at the same time, Narottam Das Thakur also had a Diksha Guru. So in this sense, devotees, I think it's a good thing to do to keep devotees together in our society. So Srila Prabhupada is a prominent Siksha Guru for all the members of ISKCON. But at the same time, I want to follow Prabhupada's instructions, and Prabhupada writes in his books over and over and over again that I should find a person, that I should find a guru who's going to personally teach me. So I'm accepting Prabhupada as my Siksha Guru, and that means that I need a physical Siksha Guru, someone who's manifest. And sometimes devotees, they get angry if you say that Prabhupada's not present. When Prabhupada's present, how can you say that he's not present? But Krishna Das Kaviraj Goswami in Chaitanya Charitamrita speaks about the Mahant Guru, meaning someone who's physically present. He distinguishes between the Mahant Guru and someone who's a previous Acharya who's no longer physically present. Because we need that. We need to have both. And it's not that Prabhupada is gone, Prabhupada's Hare Krishna is not, I don't even want to say some bad word, but Prabhupada's present. But Prabhupada lives through his teachings, but Prabhupada also lives through his followers. And Prabhupada said, if you love me, you love my dog. And this is our traditional system. We want to find someone who had a lot of physical association with Prabhupada, hopefully. Or at least someone who's imbibed the teachings of Prabhupada. Prabhupada himself didn't have so much physical association with Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, but the association that he did have, I've heard from some disciples of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. There was one devotee who had some affection for me in Jagannath Puri, who used to call for me sometimes, who told me that whenever he would see Prabhupada around Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, they were always together. Prabhupada was always hearing from him. And he wanted that physical association with Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. That's important. And of course, the most important thing was that Srila Prabhupada took the instructions of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta to his heart. Chitte Koriya Hridaya Koriya Aika, that he became one in his heart, those instructions. And so Srila Bhaktisiddhanta manifested through Srila Prabhupada. And similarly, Srila Prabhupada, this is our tradition, Srila Prabhupada will also manifest through some other person, and we take Diksha and Siksha from that person. And if we say that there is no such person, then that's pretty depressing, because what you're saying is that Prabhupada failed, that there was no one who was that qualified. But we know there were some qualified persons. Prabhupada said Jamuna was on the platform above. Prabhupada said that Jayananda Prabhu was a pure devotee, and other devotees also. But we have to look for those persons. We have to pray for them. Krishna, do you have something you want to share? Okay. Can you speak a little loud?
It's just my favorite. It's just my very favorite story about Bihari Lal and Jagannath Maharaj, and that blessing that you will always hear my voice in your heart. How, like we understand that it's through chanting and hearing that you come closer to Guru and you come to that point of oneness with him at heart. Is there any specific way we need to do that hearing and chanting so that we can receive such music from him?
Well, we already read in Narada Pancharatra that even if someone is just doing it in a kind of mechanical way, then something happens. But that'll take a long time. And if we're practicing Atma Krandana, if we're crying from the heart and chanting in a very intense way, then it happens very, very quickly. Otherwise, this is why we're reading something from the devotee Premananda Das from Nityananda Das from his Prema Vilas. And Nityananda Das says this is why so many people, they're chanting Hare Krishna for a long time, but they don't get the proper result because they're not practicing Tibrena Bhakti Yoga. Tibrena means very intense. Tibrena Bhakti Yoga, very intense Bhakti. And how do we develop that intense Bhakti? By associating with people who are intense. If we associate with people who are lackadaisical, who are on a relaxed program, then we'll also get on a relaxed program. So our sincerity is manifest in the form that we want to associate with people who make us uncomfortable, who push us to a higher platform, who may chastise us. We want that.
In the Rama Samhita also there is one verse, I can't remember the verse now, where it says that all the potencies of the Lord are invested in the Vedas, in the devotees, in the Jiva, and so like if you're chanting the holy name, it's invested there, so actually right there.
And this is the answer how Lord Shiva can how he says, I can't deliver anybody, but he's the head of a Vaishnava Sampradaya. Krishna delivers through the holy name. Pushkarachipa was commenting, ultimately oneness is achieved through love. In this way, Gurudev never leaves our heart, as Krishna never leaves the heart of Srimati Radharani and the gopis. Okay? Anapayani, Radha, do you have something to share with us? Really quickly. Okay, so we can discuss amongst ourselves. So I want to thank everybody very much. In our next session, I'm hoping, maybe 3 sessions on this verse, but I'm hoping to come to speaking something very, very intimate from our Guru Maharaj about the meaning of the word pranaya. Something Krishna Kurma was speaking about recently in class. Grantharashimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Vamshakalpatarubhishcha, Kripa Sindhu